Hi everyone. My name is Katie Nelson. I'm the Assistant Communications Librarian here at Beverly, and I'm really excited to have you all join us for Meet Your City. We have mics because we've got Bev Cam here today, and we want to make sure everyone can hear us. Is anyone having any problems with the sound level? Is it too quiet or anything? Okay, I've got this far enough away from me that I won't be blasting at you guys. So, throughout the program, if you guys have questions, we're a small enough group that we probably can just field them here. I will be repeating them for BevCam's sake and for anyone's sake that can't hear. But if you would rather write it down, we do have a basket in the back. I'll be checking that as well. Okay, so we have a great panel here today. And so what we're going to start off with is go down the line and have everyone tell us who they are, what they do, and because this is a library and we can't get away without one library question, what their favorite book is, or what they're reading if they can't pick a favorite. So, do you want to start us off?
Well, I was hoping...
Oh yes, let's start with the mic.
I was hoping you were going to start ladies first, but...
You're closer to me.
Well, you might as well get me out of the way anyway. Hi, everybody. If you don't know me, my name is Paul Guanci. I've been on the City Council for a number of years, and I'm currently lucky enough to be City Council President. My day job, I make sandwiches right down the street at Super Sub Shop on the corner of Cabot Street and Elliott Street. We have been there since 1970. My love for the family business caused me to move to Beverly when I graduated college. And I haven't left. Quick story is that our business burnt to the ground in 1977. Tough time for the family. And then with a handshake from a local banker, my dad was able to open up again 5 months later. Had a huge special because he wanted to get his customer base back, and he did. The numbers were 10,000 sandwiches in 4.5 days. And as a 12-year-old, remembering that always made me want to come to Beverly and be part of the community. So I'm on the City Council. I'm in my 9th term. It's my 7th as president. And what am I reading now? You'd never believe that I'm a really avid reader. I love to read Clive Cussler. It's easy reading. He ties in historical fact with present-day fiction. But my favorite book of all time is a book by the name of Born to Run, written by a gentleman, Chris McDougall. He was fascinated with running. He was trying to lose some weight. He was a writer for Men's World magazine. And he went to Mexico to investigate a legendary figure who was an actual real person, and he was called the White Horse. And he went and lived with this Mexican tribe, the Tarahumara, that were legendary distance runners. And it's a true account of his experiences going to see such a poor people that thrived on very little, but enjoyed running. And being an avid runner myself, I read that book every 6 or 8 months just to remind myself that, you know, we have it pretty good here, and running really takes care of a lot of problems. So thank you, Katie.
Hi, I'm Sue Gabriel. I'm the Executive Director of Beverly Bootstraps. I've been there for 11 years. Time flies when you're doing a lot of work. And I've seen the organization grow tremendously. Our budget size has about quadrupled, and that's in response to the growth in the need in the community. But it's also a testament to the community believing in the work that we do and that we really ought to take care of our neighbors. And so we're very, very grateful to the community for all the support. The organization is close to 30 years old now, which is really something when it's entirely funded by the goodwill of the community. So we should be proud of that for sure. Let's see, I'm a transplant of 24 years, I guess. I've been in Beverly. I grew up in Tewksbury, but I absolutely love this community, and I'm so glad that my husband and I sort of landed here. 3 of my children went right through the school system, so I'm thankful to the schools because they're all, well, I have one that's just about done, and they're all really doing well. And let me see, a book. Well, it was good Katie primed us because I'm not sure how I would have answered this without having thought about it. So I would say my favorite author is John Steinbeck. His writings were just really, I just admire how he writes. but it's been years since I read them, but I actually just picked up one of them. I want to reread a little. But my all-time favorite book, I would say, is Watership Down by Richard Adams. If you've never read it, it's really quite interesting. It's rabbits. However, they are humanized, and they go through some really crazy, crazy things, war and families, and it's just, you can really relate to the characters. So if you've never read it, I recommend it.
So my name is John LeLacheur. I'm the Chief of Police here in Beverly. I've been here since November of 2013, so I'm kind of the youngster on the panel, I guess. But I've been in law enforcement for 38 years. I grew up in Lowell, Massachusetts, ended up finding my way to New Hampshire because that's where the jobs were back in the early 80s, and spent 32 years here, 2 years with the town, 30 years with the state police, rose up through the ranks, retired as a captain up there, commanded the Administrative Bureau of the State Police. I also commanded several troops. At one time went back and forth from the Atlantic Ocean to Vermont and then from the Massachusetts border to Canada. So quite a different job in retrospect. But I spent my first 2 years in municipal policing, and when this opportunity came up, I jumped all over to come back to Massachusetts, and particularly to come to the North Shore. I put in for the job, and I was honored and grateful to be chosen. Be nominated by the council at the time. You were just on your way there after the election. So we've made a lot of changes here. We've been very progressive since I got here. A tremendous group of men and women. A big turnover. A lot of new officers. A lot of new supervisors. We're working on changing the culture of an old kind of mill city into a progressive, city that's totally changing to a large bedroom community for Boston, and with the commuter rail, I think we have the most crossings of any city or town in the Commonwealth. We have 5 rail stations, which is obviously a draw, and we work with our partners between the MBTA police for the rails, the state police with 128, the sheriff's department, federal agents. We work very closely with. One of the best opportunities, the greatest opportunities I had was I attended the FBI National Academy in Quantico, Virginia. It's a 10-week school in the Marine Corps base in Quantico. Only 1% of police leaders in the world get to go to the school. They only run 4 classes a year, 250 to 260 members per class. I had 25 international students with me from Pakistan, from Qatar, Kenya, Sri Lanka. So it was an incredible opportunity to meet people from all over the world. I still talk on a monthly basis with my friend from Nepal. So it was just a tremendous opportunity to work with leaders from all over the world. Some of my classmates went on to be the chief of police of San Diego, the undersheriff of Las Vegas, the sheriff of Lee County, Florida, and the one I'm looking forward to seeing the most is that he's the chief of Maui. So we're planning on trying to get out there to visit him on a 10th anniversary that's coming up very shortly here. So hopefully we'll get to talk about some of the things we're doing. I guess our biggest new thing is trying to build a new police station. We've been in the same building since 1938. It was probably obsolete in 1950. It's 9,600 square feet, and we're going into a building that's 32,000 square feet. I have police offices in 3 different buildings in the city because we can't all be together at this point, so we're really looking forward. Some public hearings will be coming up, and everyone will have an opportunity to voice their opinions on how we're going, and I can talk about that, I'm assuming, at some point later. As far as reading goes, I have one book on leadership that I reread. I gave it to a friend, and I'm trying to get it back because I have a million highlights in it. It's called It's Your Ship. It was written by a commander from the U.S. Navy that totally changed the way naval leadership did business. And he has a follow-up book that I've read, but the original, I'm going to forget the commander's name. It's a difficult name, but it's Your Ship. It's probably somewhere up in the library. It's a tremendous book. And another book I was actually given back last year at a conference in Orlando was a book written by Joseph Wambaugh, who's a famous author, who's a Los Angeles police officer. He wrote some of the most tremendous books that have been turned into movies related to police procedure and The Onion Field, New Centurions, just on and on. He wrote a book and he was passing about his gifts. I have a signed copy. I'm into that one now. Hopefully I'll see him again at my next conference and get his next work. So I was a big fan of the Robert Parker series. I'm usually not a fiction person. I'm more of a reality person, because that's part of my personality, but I find those very enjoyable for myself.
Thank you. Thank you for having us, and thank you for this. I think what I think is an inspired series at the library. So,
Thank you.
and I get to learn more about my colleagues here. I'm happy to say that on a regular basis, I find ways to connect and partner with all the people on this panel today. So my name is Estelle Rand, and I'm the Ward 2 City Councilor. I'm finishing up my 3rd term, which is almost 6 years, which is also hard to believe how fast that goes by. So a little bit about me, I guess. I am also a transplant to Beverly. I've been here for 16 years, and I really got my start in community leadership with an interest in waste reduction and also food accessibility through connecting farms through the farmers market to our community. And I think actually probably the hardest question for me tonight, depending on what you guys have to ask, is what is your favorite book? So thank you for giving us the opportunity to prepare for that. First of all, I have a really hard time picking favorites. Just to share a little bit, I have a passion for the short story genre. I love short stories. It's almost impossible for me to remember the authors and titles of them, but I absolutely love diving into a short story. Some of my favorite books are 2 of them both by Gabriel Garcia Marquez, Love in the Time of Cholera and 100 Years of Solitude. I'd love to be able to read them in Spanish, but so that's a bucket list goal for me. Also, The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho, which, if you haven't read, is a short story and it's beautiful about an alchemist. And then also Toni Morrison's book called Sula. I love that story. That's also a shorter novel. And I have the opportunity to be around books a lot now. I have, in my day job, I am now a librarian aide at an elementary school in Danvers. So I'm spending a lot of time reading new young fiction and picture books, and I think it's just a beautiful way to connect with people in our community, especially our young people. So, thanks.
If you like short stories, our Farms branch does have a short story book discussion group, so
Good to know.
just figured I'd do some library advertising. So I have a few questions to guide. If anyone does have questions, feel free to raise your hand, and we'll sort of pass them on. But let's start with just some more broad questions about your job. And so you guys have all sort of already talked about how you became involved in the position. So I guess what would surprise people most about your job, and your favorite and least favorite part of your job. So if you want to come back this way, or
That sounds like a plan.
we'll go the opposite direction.
So let's see. I guess let me start with my favorite part of this job, which was easier to pick than my favorite book. So my favorite part about this job is working with the council, city administration, other community leadership to create and amend policy that goes further to support and reflect our community needs. So actually some of you in this room have helped me create policy. So some of the things that I've had the opportunity to work on are creating a human rights committee, which was actually one of the first things that I did when I got elected. Paul Willenbrock, am I saying your last name correctly?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. So actually, Paul served on an exploratory committee that helped me to craft the language that created our Human Rights Committee, which has now taken off and does host great events here and in other places in the city. So creating policy that really helps to nurture and make our community better is my favorite thing, which came as a surprise to me. I didn't know I would love that part of being a city councilor as much as I do, and I don't even think I realized that could be part of this role. So that is 2 answers. what I did think I would love is representing people and being a voice to people who feel connected with my own values and philosophies and way of looking at the city and problem solving. My least favorite part of the job, other than parking issues, is actually the feeling that I can't do everything I want to do immediately and at once. So policy work and actually just staying informed about our meetings requires a lot of patience. Consensus building requires a lot of patience, and I'll use the Human Rights Committee and actually the plastic bag ban as examples. It took both of those actions took over a year of consensus building to make those policy changes with our city. So what that did was bring on businesses. It created consensus on the city council to have that year. I, in both cases, worked with citizen working groups who helped tremendously, and also partnered with city committees. So our waste reduction committee helped tremendously, as well as members of city council and the administration. So it takes a lot of effort to build consensus. It's totally worth it, but that can be, the patience required to do that can sometimes be my least favorite part of the job. So, thank you.
Before we move on, is there anything that would surprise people about being a city councilor or about your job that you don't think people would know that you do?
Let's see. I think, one of the things I know my family was surprised about, spending time together with my sisters around the holidays. My siblings were shocked to know that my personal cell phone number was public information. So I don't know how many of you understood that or not, but she was shocked to think somebody can just call you anytime they want to ask you questions about the city or, potholes, things like that. So I think that is probably something not everybody understands. But also, on the other side of that, it's great to understand that because you can call, email, text, or message me at any moment, and I'm going to be there to receive your questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I'm feverishly making notes here as Estelle was going on. But one of the things I do, I actually sit on the Human Rights Committee. I'm a member of the Human Rights Committee. So another one of the things that I do, for the city, I represent pretty much the city on the committee. Most of the committee members are private citizens, or they come from different aspects of the city. The school superintendent is either on or has a designee, and then myself, and then some business people and community individuals. So it's a tremendous organization. We meet once a month. Those meetings are open to the public. And also we do, as a council, so we also do special events that come up during the course of the year. So it's kind of a fun thing to do. And probably one of the best parts of my job that I get to do is community engagement. When I spent 30 years with the state police, we didn't really get into the communities, get into the neighborhoods. I did work gang cars and neighborhood cars in Manchester and things like that, but it wasn't really community events. I mean, I love homecoming. I hate that it's in August because it's coming up to the end of the summer, but the homecoming week is just an incredible time. I'm at every concert at Lynch Park with my family, and we're at almost every event. The last couple of years I get to present the Senior Citizen of the Year Award. I get to walk up the person that received the award, and I really enjoy that. It's probably the most enjoyable part of my job. One thing that I do that is different from some cities and towns in the Commonwealth is I am the appointing authority. So anybody that gets hired by the police department, I'm the one who has ultimate say. I don't have to ask the mayor, I don't have to ask the city council. I do all the hiring, I do all the firing, I do all the suspensions if there are any. So everything comes right back on me. And I have to, I have to deal with the Civil Service Commission, but not a lot of chiefs of police have that authority. They have to go through either a town manager, a city manager, or a mayor. So I'm glad I have the ability to really get down and into the offices that we're going to hire and work with them as we bring them along. One of the hardest things that I've dealt with over my career is the death of colleagues. Several of my colleagues when I was up in New Hampshire, people I trained, I mean, I literally trained them to be, troopers were shot and killed in the line of duty, and some of my friends. So that's probably one of the hardest things I've had to deal with over the time. Anytime I dealt with an accident or a fire, and there's been some cases with children involved, obviously those are the hardest cases for us to handle, because we all have kids, well, not all of us, but we all have kids at home. I'm now onto that next level of 2 grandchildren, so it's amazing how that affects what we do on a day-to-day basis. And probably one of the things that surprised my guys the most and surprised a lot of people is I wear the uniform every day. I stop cars, I go to calls. Chiefs of police a lot of times back, even the 70s and the 80s were administrators. They wore a suit and tie every day. They went in, they checked the budget, they checked the logs. I don't like to do that. I like to get involved, and I'm on calls all the time with my guys. I was coming into work today, there was a call for a woman, medical that I went to, and the officers were tied up on other calls, so I was able to go there with the ambulance, take some of the burden off them. People are sometimes surprised, I think, when the chief of police shows up in their front door for an alarm call or for a raccoon call I went on one time. So I try to get involved as much as I can with the city and all aspects of it.
Thank you. That's
Sorry, Steve.
All right, I might need your notes, so leave them open.
I can reiterate.
I think one of the things that might, I don't know if it would surprise people, but I don't think they think of when they think of a nonprofit is the fact that we also are a business. And that takes up a lot of my time as the executive director. We have to follow all the same laws that any business needs to follow. So I'm going to give you a for instance. The grand bargain came into play last summer, and that meant that every minimum wage job that we have at Beverly Bootstraps had to be adjusted up to the grand bargain. Now, I love paying people more for good work. That's a great thing. But if you haven't budgeted it, it's a big surprise. And it does throw all of your plans and your budget off kilter. And as a nonprofit, we have to be extra transparent and extra careful with how we budget and how we spend. We're audited every year. You can go right on our website and pull up our financials and our 990 and see exactly where your donations go to. And we believe in being very, very good stewards. But sometimes when we get thrown a curveball like that, it sure creates a little bit of a challenge for us. Because we have great employees, and they are actually our very most important asset, along with our volunteers and any other folks that are helping us get that work done. We are a service agency. We can't get it done without great people. So I think that sometimes people just sort of lose sight of the fact that nonprofits are businesses. And we have to follow all those rules and regulations, and also want to do all the right things. My favorite part of the job, I'll start with that. My favorite part of the job is, usually it's around the holidays that I see it most evidently. The holidays at Beverly Bootstraps are nuts. It's just crazy. It's so busy. I can't even describe to you how busy it gets there because we're doing so many seasonal programs. We usually give out about 400 turkeys. Just think about how many turkeys that is in this room. Like, think about 400 turkeys in this room. Okay, well, they're in our coolers. So occasionally, we've had them in other coolers around town before we had a lot of space. We give gifts to about 650 children in the community. Think about 6 or 7 gifts times that many children. Think about how that would look in this room. We have so much stuff in our building between November and December. And you know what else we have? We have all kinds of people coming in with those turkeys or with those gifts or with a check or with whatever that they're bringing in, other food or other toiletries or whatever. The amount of generosity and great goodwill in this community is incredible, and we just see it in such a large scale during those months. But it's all the time. Volunteers who come in every week, and they do their 2.5-hour shift to help us get that work done. It's really amazing. So that is by far my favorite part. My least favorite part, I have a few things up on the list, but I think I will boil it down to that you can't help everybody. You just really want to help everybody who comes through the door. But we need to partner with those people. If they're struggling, they need to come in and partner with us. And we have to have the resources. And those two things can not happen sometimes. And it's just really sad for us, because especially if somebody's gotten they've been brave enough to come through our doors and ask for help. Of course, we just want to wave the magic wand and fix it for them. But we can't always. And that's a really tough thing for me and for any of our staff to sort of be okay with. At some point, you just have to accept that if you're going to do the good work that we do and to help as many people as we can, you have to accept that it's not always going to go the way you wish it would. So that's definitely the toughest. So I left it on a sour note. I'm sorry. So back to the turkeys and the presents and that's the best part.
Thank you. Well, that's easy. The best part of my job is that I get to be on TV every Monday night. No, that's... And the best part about my job is, one, it's government at this level is nonpartisan. You don't have to be Democrat. You don't have to be Republican. It's about serving your community. And that's my favorite part of the job, is constituent work. And I think that many of my colleagues will tell you that that's their favorite thing also. It's that one-on-one interaction that you have with people that need something. They don't have anybody to turn to. They might think that the mayor is in a vacuum and too important to approach, so they have their part-time city councilors. There's nothing more rewarding to me than when I'm at work, somebody will come in and say, do you have a minute? And I'll sit down and talk to them about what they need. And it could be a sidewalk, it could be a stop sign, it could be a handicap sign in front of their house. But it's great to be able to have a relationship with various department heads and even the regular workers here in the city of Beverly that can go above and beyond to help you get that person what they need. And they're so appreciative. Even if you can't get that tree cut down, or the sidewalk takes 6 months or 8 months or even a year, they're appreciative that you put that effort in. And here in 2019, with technology, it's very easy, because of cell phones and text messaging, to get the messages back and forth. Just an example, we all have a movie being filmed over here at the old Briscoe School. Well, they haven't been adhering to what they were supposed to do. So I had a constituent from Swan Street who was concerned that the lights were on at 3 o'clock in the morning. So he contacted me, not at 3 o'clock in the morning. He waited until 8 a.m. And I don't know how he got my cell phone number, but he had it. And I made a call to the mayor's chief of staff, who I want to talk about for a minute also. And before you knew it, we knew that was never going to happen again. It was taken care of. And the past couple of days, everything has been 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., which is a city ordinance. So that's one thing. To follow up with constituent services, that Kevin Hartunian is the mayor's chief of staff. When Mike Cahill was elected, he made it known to everybody that he wanted to fill this position. Bill Scanlon had it years ago, but it was more of a ceremonial position, if anybody remembers Dan Murphy. But Kevin really makes our job as city councilors easier. He helps us with constituent service, and I think that he enjoys it as much as we do. Least favorite part is definitely the time Estelle said it, not being able to have the time to do everything you want to do. If you're a city councilor and you have a full-time day job, that day job gets in the way sometimes. But you could be somewhere Monday night, Tuesday night, Wednesday night, Thursday night, and in the afternoons also. There's a meeting going on all over the place. And sometimes you feel slighted because you can't get to all of those things. But we do the best that we can, and having a nice working relationship with my colleagues, there are times when we cover for each other. If I can't get to something in Ward 5, like tonight is the Ward 5 master plan meeting at the North Beverly School. I know Don Martin is going to be there. or if something's going on in Ward 2, Estelle usually makes an appearance. I can call her the next morning and she can fill me in about it. And I work very well with our at-large city councils, Julie Flowers and Tim Flaherty, that we try to have each other's back. If I'm working on a project, somebody asks me to do something else, and I know I don't have the time, I know I have a couple of people to back me up. So it's been really nice to have a working relationship with so many great people throughout the years. What people don't know about the city is how hard city employees work. Years ago, you heard the story about 7 DPW guys standing around a hole with one guy working and everybody else drinking coffee. That doesn't exist anymore. You have guys that are first in at DPW that work just as hard as Mike Collins. And the same thing with Chief LeLacheur's staff. You have a lot of young, hungry, and energetic officers who do really well with the city. And I've noticed that with all the construction that's going on Cabot Street. It's taken much longer than many of us had hoped for. But the police are so attentive, and their number one priority is getting people through the dilemma and making sure that they're able to park and get into those businesses on Cabot Street. So it's above and beyond. It's more about not just about directing traffic. It's about trying to get people to the businesses also. So we are so blessed with so many rank and file employees, and we have a great management staff at City Hall. The mayor's department heads all go above and beyond. And I think that flies under the radar. And as city councils, we definitely appreciate that all the time. Thanks.
Great. So I guess so the next question is, what do you wish people knew about your position?
How much work it is. It's really, and if you want to do the job right, you have to put the time in. You have to get things done in the morning before you go to work, and then a lot of times you're out late at night. That's what it is. It's a part-time position. Some people may think it's full-time like it is in larger cities like Boston, but it's a part-time position that we get a stipend for, and I think if you figured out the hourly wage, it would be less than the new minimum wage is, because you're on the go all the time. It's like that 24/7 position that you have to know. You have to know what the pulse of the city is.
Right.
I didn't get to prep for this question. I would say maybe the how varied an executive director's position is, and it's not just anyone who's running a nonprofit would tell you this. If you're a decent executive director, you're on the ground with your folks sometimes figuring out exactly what is it that we're trying to do here to meet your mission. Certainly I've carried my fair share of turkeys, I'm just saying. And I've also done that with holiday gifts too, yes, because we all have to dig in and help sometimes. But then I can go from there right into a board meeting and have to be able to be versed in all of the avenues of the organization, the finances, the personnel, the challenges that we might be having with programs. Do we have enough resources? Should we go into a bigger building? That was years ago. We had that conversation, not yesterday. We're already in the bigger building. And it was quite a project. And then, I might be walking right in with a donor and talking to them about how wonderful it is that they're thinking about investing in the work that we do and why it will make such a difference. So you really have to be a little bit of a jack of all trades, I think, when you're leading a nonprofit. And there are never enough hours, never, for any of the staff on a nonprofit.
Sorry, you've got the challenge with the the table and the water.
So far,
You're doing good.
We've mastered it. I don't know if it's something people don't know, but it's very similar to what Sue and Paul said. It's a 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week, 365 days a year. These things are a curse. I have a public email address that's on our website. I get emails all the time. Sometimes I'll be answering them at 10 o'clock at night, and my wife is looking at me like, why are you doing that? But if it's fresh in my head and I can give a person an answer right away, I try to give an answer right away. And if I'm driving down the street, I have a take-home vehicle that I have right to use all the time. I've come across medicals and jumped out, and my wife's looking at me like, what are you doing? Or, stop at a little fender bender to check it out, or the phone rings all the time. It's constant. And I'm in a salaried position, so it is what it is. I took it on. I knew what it was, but like today is a typical 14-hour day. And tomorrow will be a typical 14-hour day, and Saturday is supposed to be a day off, but who knows. And I've taken on other responsibilities on top of that, which is silly, but I do it. We're in a 62 city and town regional police consortium. It's called NEMLEC. It's the Northeast Massachusetts Law Enforcement Council. So we share resources. So SWAT, motorcycles, bike teams, riot control unit, search and rescue, and I take charge of the incident command unit. So I'm in charge of the entire incident command element for that. And I also am on a international foundation, so I've taken that on. So we all tend to do things, and we take more things on, we probably should. But it's just that idea that a police officer is on, if they're in the city of Beverly and they're off duty, they're not really off duty. They always have their authority, and they can self-initiate or self-activate. And I can do that as well. One other thing I can do, though, is because we have agreements with these 62 cities and towns, I have actually jurisdiction all of Essex County and all of Middlesex County. So if I come across something in any of those areas, I can take some type of action if I have to. Whether it's just holding something for the local place where I am to show up, but sometimes you can kind of get yourself in over the head. You forget and kind of back off and realize what you're doing and what's going on and ask for help. But I think we all do it. I think it's a type A personality type thing. We just take on more, and somebody asks you, well, can you run this committee? You say yes, and I got a call to run the traffic safety committee for Mass Chief. So right now we're working on this distracted driver bill. We're working on some changes in the seatbelt law. We're working on some changes with trucks and bike safety. So there's a lot of things in committees that we all get involved with that, as I'm saying this, they're probably running through their heads about this 14 other organizations we're all involved with on top of what we regularly do.
Thank you. I'm learning to say no when people ask me. That's
teach a course.
yes. When I figure it out, I will share. It starts with just no. I can't do that. And then you start to do your commitments better. Hopefully, it's a commitment to not multitask anymore. But that's my approach. I'm learning. So okay, now I've forgotten my question here.
What do you wish people knew about your position?
Thank you. And it's so fascinating to learn more about all of you. And okay, what do I wish people knew more about? One is actually similar to what Paul said, is that how passionate people are who work for and in the city, including city councilors, including our library staff and leadership. People around the city, as what I've found, is that they're willing to go that extra mile to do what needs to get done, and everyone I've met has the best intentions. They may have a different vision for Beverly than I have, but it's always with the best intentions, and I really respect that about our city and our community. I also sometimes hear sort of a kind of almost like the myth of even local politics, that there are kind of behind the door deals, and actually I shouldn't call it a myth because it's happening in Boston right now, but I would like to share that what I'd like people to know is that doesn't happen here in Beverly. If it does, I'm left out. But so I guess I will speak personally, is that as a city councilor in Beverly, we're very honest, respectful. We work together whether we disagree or not, including with the administration or department heads, where we have at our core the knowledge that we're all working for Beverly, right? So we're all continuing this passion for keeping our citizens connected, safe, feeling comfortable to be leaders in our community. I think, I always like to share with people that you can create the community that you want. It will take effort, but you can do that. Beverly has a ton of opportunity for people just to step into roles of leadership and take charge of the things they want to see in our community. So I feel like that's how I got to where I am. And I always want people to know that and to encourage other people to be part of that leadership. Or just enjoy the Atomic Cafe. You know, just go have a cup of coffee and say no to those committees and enjoy the city living. But, yeah, that's all.
Thank you. So I keep leaning. Not used to talking on a microphone, so well, thank you. Thank you. How can people become more involved if they're interested in what you're doing or in your community, all that kind of stuff?
Yes, so number one, so that actually kind of connects to the last thing that I just said, and I think identifying if you have a craving to do more or see a change in your city, I'm encouraging you to take steps by speaking with your elected officials, with your city leaders, to talk about changes or fun that you want to see in the city. But one of the great ways to get involved is to attend your civic association meetings. And I see people in here who attend the Ward 2 Civic Association meetings. Some of you don't even live in Ward 2, but you feel passionate about downtown, which is Ward 2. We're in it now. So I'm really impressed with what the civic associations are doing around the city. They all have kind of different styles, but they're welcoming and generally really positive groups that host fun social events, learning events, connect you to development that's happening in your city. They help to create a stronger voice for that ward. They help city councilors to have a direct line of communication with citizens, and it gives community members an easy way. People in Ward 2 know they're going to find me on the third Tuesday. Is it the last Tuesday? Now I'm getting overwhelmed. But
I should know that too, because it's
we're here a lot.
It's here.
So they know where to find me. I'm going to be at the Ward 2 Civic Association meeting. They know they can hold me accountable from week to week. We can have conversations, and you can stay informed, or you can go further than stay informed. So I really believe in our civic associations, and for a civic association to be healthy, the leadership has to change regularly. So we need new people. So that's a great place to start your leadership or just your being engaged in the community.
This is an easy question. The same thing, so every second Tuesday night of the month at 7 o'clock, the police has what's called the Community Advisory Council. And it's an open forum, everyone's invited. We normally meet at 7 p.m. and we normally meet either here or we take invitations to other places in the city. Last year with the Cove Civic Center, with the Roughside Civic Center, and I think we're at Hastings House also last year for one of our meetings. So every month, second Tuesday of the month, 7 o'clock. This coming month we'll be right here next Tuesday night, and it's just an open forum. We talk about anything that's going on in the city. My traffic sergeant is here, my community impact officers are here. Sometimes I'll bring another staff member, and we'll talk about anything that's ongoing, changes we're making, and take ideas from the community, and it's also given me a good opportunity the last few months again, to talk about the new police station, where we are in the process there. So come if you want to come next Tuesday night. You get on our email list, and then every meeting after that we send out an email blast, and we also put it on our website.
Easy. Go right to our website, beverlybootstraps.org. And there are two things you can do. You can donate. We like money. We like stuff, either for the thrift shop or remember those turkeys and those holiday gifts? Those would work. We also do a seasonal program before school where we collect school supplies and backpacks for children. So if you go on our website, though, you can see. And then food, of course, we would take. And things like toiletries and items that fall into that category for folks. We have a top 10 list right on there, so if you'd like to go there, that would guide you. And the other way that you can help, you can volunteer. Remember I talked about how those people that do everything around Beverly Bootstraps are the key? Well, we usually have about 250 people who volunteer every year. If you calculate out the value, it's worth about $500,000 to us in the number of hours that people volunteer for us. And we cannot do our work unless we have that kind of people power behind our staff. So if that's of interest to you, again, just go right to that website, beverlybootstraps.org. You can fill out a volunteer application, chat with our awesome volunteer coordinator, and she would try to figure out where you might slot in best in all of the things that we try to accomplish.
There's dozens of boards and commissions here in the city that the mayor makes appointments to and the city council approves them. And I don't think for as long as I've been around, and probably Estelle too, we've never said no to a mayor's appointment. There's the planning board, the conservation commission. There is something real simple, the cultural council. It's 9 people, they get money from the state, and they dole that money out to local art groups or local artists. So they have a specific agenda. There's the cable commission. When the contract with Xfinity comes up, they're in charge of negotiating a new cable contract. The city would not run properly if we didn't have volunteer people staffing our boards and commissions. I know there's 2 openings on the recreation commission. Mark Casey, the chair, reminds me of that every week when I see him. And then he says, "Why isn't your wife on it?" But well, she's the president of the middle school PTO, I think. I can't keep anything straight nowadays. If you like the airport, there's an opening on the airport commission. It's amazing that some people that live here in Beverly, if you don't look up, you don't realize we have an airport here in Beverly. And it's come so far over the past decade. We have a new airport manager who's engaged in the community and would love a couple new members on that commission. So it's boards and commissions. If you're looking for something a little less taxing and more relaxed, Senior Center is always looking for volunteers. I mean, we're all going to end up there eventually, so why not try and help somebody that's there now? They have great programs, but they need help because they're always short on staff. Best thing to do is write Mayor Cahill a letter. And if you need one of our your city councilors, one of us that you know, to put in a good word for you, we would do that in a minute, because we enjoy working with the boards and commissions.
Great, thank you. I've got my
Your own.
but thank you.
I wanted to be a talk show host for a minute.
I know, it's fun, right? So at this point, I'm going to open it up. Does anyone have any questions at this time? Yes?
May I, as someone who's only lived in the city for 78 years, may I welcome the 3 new kids on the board? Thank you for what you do, all of you. Paul, your leadership speaks for itself. You know, I have occasion to be out of town in conversations. And where are you from? I'm from Beverly. You are? Oh, lucky you. And how right they are. It is a glorious, glorious, glorious city. And my question, Sue, is to you. It's pretty fortuitous because I just finished your informational brochure yesterday. And the work that you and the staff and the volunteers, I get emotional about it. So thank you for that. Conversation with my wife about that very work that you do. We had the conversation when I finished the brochure. And the part that eats at my heart, and you alluded to it a little bit, the budget expanding, the cancer is growing. That's a dumb question. You give the solution. What can we do?
So real quick before Sue answers, just for those who couldn't hear and also to reiterate for those watching on BevCam, the question was, what can we do about the growing problems that the Bootstrap is facing? And also lots of wonderful compliments about Beverly and the staff that work for her.
So first of all, I'm going to say I was very fortunate. I got to take a trip over the summer with our family. We went out to the Southwest. Beautiful. And I got back here, and the next morning took my dog down to Dayton Street Beach, and I looked out and I thought, we saw some amazingly beautiful places. And this is every bit as gorgeous as anything we went to see. So you're right, we live in such a gorgeous community, but we live in a nice community. And that, you don't feel that everywhere when you go and you travel or you live somewhere else. And so again, I've already said, it's such a generous community, and that is a great thing. All right, so how long do we have for me to answer this question? So I think the question is, what's going on and what can we do? So absolutely, we've seen an enormous growth in the need in the last, well, really since the recession. That's really what set it off. And boy, oh boy, I'll tell you, the numbers just have exploded. What we're seeing now is very interesting to us, and we don't totally know what's going on, but we have some theories. What we're seeing now is a deeper need. During the recession, what you saw, we saw the numbers go up a lot, but it was sort of temporary. People were coming in, there was a need, they would visit our food pantry for a year or maybe even 2, and then somehow, some way, they were getting themselves back on their feet. The folks that we're seeing now, we're seeing more consistent visits and for a longer period of time. We believe that the group that we see are aging, so we have a lot more seniors that are needing our help on a much more consistent basis. The number one thing that we see through our case management is rental assistance. So the cost of housing in the community is an enormous pressure on everybody's budget, but particularly those who are renting. And it's a supply and demand issue with our housing right now, and but particularly in that affordable arena. But even in something that was market rate, because the supply and the demand, there is not enough supply for the demand, and any product out there, no matter what it is, if you have more demand than you have supply, what happens? Price goes up. And so we're seeing a lot of our families getting priced out of their homes. And their rents, if they own, they would be okay, but that rent is just going up and up and up. And there's also a lot of changes with benefits that are out there and may be available to some. And then there's the cliff effect, that if you're at a certain level and you're getting federal dollars and you step a foot out of there, then they're gone. And so that enormous gap between where a federal, an income level goes outside of that federal assistance can change a family's life dramatically. So that challenge of how do you get from here up to self-sustainability is really challenging. So what can we do? Well, it depends on who the we is what I would answer. We watch federal policies all the time because many different federal policies can really affect what's going on economically for our families. We watch state policies for the same reason. They can really dramatically change one way or the other how a family is doing. What can we do as a community? We should just keep doing what we're doing because unless we can affect those other policies, which, maybe if you feel strongly about something, give your representative, your senators a call. But beyond that, help us help the folks that we're helping is what I would say. We're moving way more food than we have a small grocery store going on at Bootstraps, which is wonderful. It's a wonderful response, but it's sort of sad that the community needed to build that. But we did, and we have, and fortunately, again, the community is seemingly staying supportive of that. And I would say, think of housing in a big context in the community, because really, any new supply helps to offset the demand. I would say, we also want to have a community that's nice to live in. so that, you know, but in a big context, that more housing in our community, if we can figure out how to do it well, no matter what the housing is going to help. But it's going to take a number of years. And our folks that we help a lot, they are probably going to be leaving the community, a bunch of them, because there just isn't the supply out there to get them into affordable housing. Also, support those affordable housing initiatives that are coming down the line, because we need absolutely every single unit that can get added to the community.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Does anyone else want to comment on that?
Your elected officials are very aware of the housing crisis here in the city of Beverly. About 18 months ago, Estelle and I and our 7 colleagues, we created a new zoning district right up above the high school at the intersection of Sawyer and Tozer Road to make way for affordable below-rate market housing for marginalized families and homeless families. So that is going to create somewhere, I think the first phase is 75 units, but then it goes up, that they have room to expand. And with this new zoning area, zoning...
40R?
Yeah, 40R, the state, because we're creating this housing, the state is going to give us money to cover the costs of having the students in our school system. So that's one thing we've done. Years ago, we created the Inclusionary zoning ordinance, and that puts the onus on developers that they have to create affordable units, whether they do it within their building or off-site, every time they put a project before the planning board. And if they don't want to build those units, they have to pay into the Affordable Housing Trust. So we're all very well aware, and we hear the cry about seniors having to leave Beverly. We're down to 2 proposals, I think, for the old Briscoe building, and both of them have some part of senior housing involved. So we're on it, and we're trying to do it's something we talk about almost every meeting.
Thank you. Did anyone else have any?
Yeah. In relationship to housing and so forth is traffic. I commute to Middleton every day and back home, and during rush hour, it's just unbelievable getting in and out of Beverly. You know, it's kind of the Danvers, the 62 intersection with 128. There's no way around that, right? I mean, there's no other way.
A plane.
No other way. Beverly.
So
No, I have it figured out. You have to go to exit 18 in Centerville or exit 17 up in Wenham, then get on the highway south, and then you have to get off at 1A and get on 97, and that's a lot quicker than going down Route 62.
So my alternative is I go to work and get there at 10 in Middleton rather than at 9. And fortunately, my boss is fine with that. But the traffic, it backs up to Bridge Street and 62. Nothing, right? It's just impossible.
So just to reiterate the question before we go to answers, the question was about the increase in traffic problem.
Initiatives that are coming down the line.
What can be done, if anything, about that?
So a lot of it is regional, and there's a lot of things that come into play with that. If you have one accident on I-95 in Linfield, it's going to back up the highway to Gloucester, and people don't drive well. And so every morning, and we're all victims of it, you watch the traffic reports in the news, and there's an accident on 95, there's an accident on 128, there's an accident on Route 3, there's an accident at the Cloverleaf at 93 at Reddick. So it continuously creates, the logjam. And one of the things we ask for is, like you said, is to set up different commute hours. If every business opens at 9 o'clock, it's a problem. I know that when I have to go to Burlington for a 9 o'clock in the morning meeting once a month, I know it's going to be an hour and a half, even though it's a 35-minute drive. I dread when I have to go to Meamer and Framingham, because I know that's going to be a 2.5-hour drive. I had to go to Foxborough for an ADL meeting a couple of weeks ago, and I knew that was going to be a 2.5-hour drive down to Foxborough. It's just, there's a lot going on. The Commonwealth is booming. You have a lot of people commuting, a lot of people with one-person cars. So use mass transit, try to use the trains, but unfortunately sometimes, someone leaves a pressure cooker on on the platform in Raleigh and shuts down the entire train line. So I don't think it's one solution. I mean, I think if I know one thing the governor's talking about is making a dedicated lane. If you want to pay more, you can use that lane. And I know that it's kind of a new theory around here. I was down in Virginia for a training session back last year, and they have that. They used to have the old center lanes were carpool lanes. Well, if you wanted to pay an extra so many dollars, you could get in that lane and use it. And I watched 3 lanes of stopped traffic, and I just went sailing down the lane. I paid my $5, and I went to Reagan Airport very easily. So, I mean, I think there are other options out there. I think there's a great mass transit system if people are using it. I know a lot of times if I want to go into Boston for a meeting, I'll take the train to North Station and walk to Stanford Street to one of the state buildings, or walk up to the State House to do stuff. It's just so much easier sometimes than trying to take that drive and then
Right,
and
also-
planning accordingly.
Yeah, but you have to take the train 2 hours in advance because the train is so unreliable. I mean, I hear you and I appreciate your answer.
Yeah, again, I don't think there's one solution. To add a lane to 128 would be billions of dollars. You'd have to take land, you'd have to do all the new bridges. I just think we live in such a tremendous area that we have to put up with some of the problems. And also focus on something else, and again, it's a beautiful city, and it's a tremendously beautiful city. But one thing that we see is we go from the homeless and overdoses and very poor conditions we see in our line of work, up into the most beautiful homes and areas of the city and wonderful people. So we see that whole gambit. And one thing we're seeing, and I know Sue will probably agree with me with, is we're seeing a tremendously more calls involving mental health illnesses. And what we've done in the city, we actually got a $90,000 grant to hire a clinician. We have a full-time clinician. She's back paid through the city, but she's an employee of Leahy. And we take her to mental health calls, and we take her to overdose follow-ups that we do. So if a person has an overdose, we go there the day after, because a lot of people don't want to talk to us when we've administered Narcan and taken them to the hospital. They're very angry at us. So the next day we go back to the house. The community impact unit, goes back to the house with our clinician, and we also have partners in Lynn that come up. They're volunteers, they're former addicts that go and deal with some of the follow-ups that we do, and it's a tremendously successful program. The only problem we have is our clinician, it's a shared clinician between 6 communities, and we're hoping to do an expansion of the grant so we can have one for 3, and there'll be a second one for another 3. We go up to Gloucester and Rockport and right up through there, so we're hoping to add another clinician. But the whole idea, it's a jail diversion grant, because a lot of times we go to calls, it's a mental health issue, but they've committed a crime. The only thing we could do is arrest them and take them to jail. Now what we're doing is we're getting the clinician involved, getting people into treatment, finding them beds, and staying out of that. And we have to do, like traffic, we have to do everything regionally now. So even with the opioid problem, if someone's up in Salisbury and overdoses, but they're a Beverly resident, the Salisbury police puts that in a computer program, so our officers know there was a Beverly resident that was involved in an overdose, even though they may have been in Salisbury or Lynn or wherever. And so now we can do the follow-up with that person. We were not made aware of those cases before. Now every city and town in Essex County is involved in this program, so we're all notified. So if someone from Danvers overdosed in Beverly, we let Danvers know so that they can do a follow-up. So everything has to be done regionally for it to work.
Thank you.
I think Estelle.
I actually really love how you took us from sort of an issue that affects us all daily to an issue that affects us all daily that also needs our attention as a community and as community leaders. I do want to maybe, like, this will kind of bring it back to traffic and add a little brevity to the situation too, is that I wanted to share a bumper sticker with you. And the bumper sticker says, "I am not in traffic, I am traffic." And I think that that's what, as a small community that has super access to 128 and is desirable, and also like the only way to get to, Marblehead is through all of these communities. And I think that that's sort of the shift I'm encouraging. And I know you used to take the train and commute, so I'm sure that driving to Middleton is a shock. I take 62 every day too. And actually it's only 3 miles away from my house where I'm going. So what I can do as a community member is find a way to get there that isn't creating traffic. So the city, the mayor and our planning department has worked pretty hard to find different ways to start. They started a pilot program. I think it's called the Wave Shuttle, and that Wave Shuttle is sort of focusing on the miles between the Beverly Depot and places like the Cummings Center and Cherry Hill, trying to get people, to encourage people to use the train, and then they'll have, right now, what is a free ride on a small van that takes you around to these large employers, basically. So I think there's a lot we can do. I know the mayor is really interested in, shifting our community around electric vehicles and things like that. There are so many reasons to do better about how we're organizing ourselves in our cars. So I do like to keep that in mind, though. That bumper sticker is lovely to me. I am traffic. If I drove here, I'm part of the problem. So that's the way I look at it, and that's also the way I'm encouraging people who kind of show up at the Civic Association to look at it too. Not that it's not a real issue, but one, there are deeper, really important issues that we can focus on as a community to lift ourselves up and to help the most pressing issues and marginalized citizens, but also we can kind of think of it lightly and say, okay, I'm being traffic now. How do I change that? So.
Yes.
A related question that I'm starting to touch on a little bit. I'm new to Beverly, and one of the things that we really liked about here is the walkability of the city. My husband walks the train. I try to walk my kids to their daycare, but it's challenging. And I'm just wondering, is there any efforts going on to think about the infrastructure, and as we change and evolve as a city, is pedestrian friendly intersections and things being paid attention to?
So,
I think the councils can talk about it.
I'm just going to reiterate the question just for Bev Cam and everything. So the question is about how we're planning on developing and building the infrastructure in Beverly as the city changes and evolves. And especially for the walkability of pedestrians?
So particularly in Cabot Street, once that's done, you're going to see incredible improvements. So one of the things we're doing is making the bump out so that the crosswalk distances are much shorter. If you go to where the Unitarian Church was across to the other side of Cabot Street, it's almost like a football field. Now, by bringing out the sidewalks and doing the bump outs, it's going to shorten those distances, which makes it much easier to cross. Something similar to what we did up at Knowlton Street here in winter. So you're going to see that all on that corridor there. The city just undertook a huge traffic study for Elliott Street to look at syncing all the lights so the traffic flows better, and also maybe possibly moving a traffic light that's kind of in a weird spot down at Starbucks, maybe up towards Echo Ave, so when kids come down off of Sturtevant or Echo to try to go up to Ayers-Royal side, they'll actually have a much better crosswalk to use. Some of the things we've also done is add some rapid beacon flashers to certain crosswalks. We did it at Spring in Essex. We did it at Bridge Street for the school crossing guard. We've added some signal warning signs at Eisenhower now for the Cove. So we're constantly looking at making improvements in crosswalks and safety. Really excited about when Cabot Street's done. All the new LED street lights make it much brighter. It's a very dark corridor at night. It's a very dark corridor just because the building is so close together, there's not a lot of sun. And the same thing we find now down on Rantoul Street with the structures going up, it's making a darker area. So by having better crosswalks, better signaling, it's going to help us. But pedestrian safety is one of those things that the pedestrians really also have to just realize that it's not a force field. When I jump in that crosswalk, I'm going to be safe. I stare drivers down, and I'm dressed like this crossing the street every morning, and I've almost been hit a few times because they've got the cell phone up in front of their face, they're playing with the radio, they're talking, they're speeding, whatever the case may be. I had a case down at St. Mary's Church where I was crossing the street. A woman's crossing with a baby carriage the other way, so I kind of stayed in the middle. A car stopped, and a moving van came up and rear-ended the car that had stopped for us all. And so, you just have to be very aware of your surroundings, and I do. I don't step out in traffic unless I make eye contact with the person, and we try to encourage the kids. Every school program does a walk to school program with the PTO, safety programs with the kids. We're also doing bicycle safety. The mayor and I had this discussion. We're all kind of horrified. We watched 6 or 7 kids riding their bikes at middle school. Not one kid had a helmet. And by law they have to, so we're going to ground those kids, call the parents, keep the bikes. They're going to have to come in and get away home. It's something we're thinking about doing. So we all have to do something as far as being aware of our surroundings. And a lot of people don't understand crosswalk safety, believe it or not. I mean, you're not a pedestrian until you're in the crosswalk. So people would stand on the sidewalk and they're upset because cars aren't stopping. Technically, they don't have to. You're not a pedestrian until you're in the crosswalk. What gets very difficult, especially in a crowded street, is when you have cars. So you have to kind of step out so the car can see you. And usually the first car's not going to stop because they don't see you. You have to wait for the second one to stop. Well, the traffic on the other side legally doesn't have to stop till you're a quarter of the way into that intersection. And it's very frustrating. It's just the way the law is written.
Really?
And one of the other things we're starting to focus on is people that don't push the walk signal and just walk out in these intersections that are controlled, and then all the traffic has to stop. And they get mad, everyone gets mad. There are walk signals for a reason. So we ask people to hit the walk signal, wait for your turn, everything turns red, and then cross that intersection, because we see it all the time where, I guess I'm guilty as everybody else. I'm looking for my light to turn green, my light turns green, I'm looking straight ahead and someone walks in front of me. It's a very deadly practice.
I guess I was thinking there's some places where infrastructure is not set up for success.
Well, we're always looking for improvements. As a parking and traffic commission, I always encourage people to email my traffic sergeant, Sergeant Henneberry. Again, right on our website, you can go and email him anytime you have a suggestion, anytime you see something wrong. What we're doing now in particular is we're giving everything that we get right to Director Collins, Commissioner Collins rather, and the engineers look at the issue. Sometimes people want a crosswalk, but it may be in a location that really isn't safe. There's not enough visibility. There's not a curb cut for handicap access. So they really have to look at every intersection, every crosswalk on an engineering study first, and then we also try to enforce the vehicle laws. We have special distracted driver details. We have special crosswalk details. We put a police officer out in plain clothes, we'll unmarked car, and we have him cross the street. And just amazing how many people we stop that just don't care about pedestrians, or they're not paying attention to pedestrians.
Okay. Did you want to continue?
Yeah, just follow up on that. I think Cabot Street is going to be so much more walkable and safe when the project is all done. Parking on one side of the street. The chief mentioned the lights, the bigger sidewalks. I mean, that's a start. And the city's committed to making those important intersections much better. In the spring, we're going to start design work for 3 major intersections: the Beverly-Salem Bridge, McKay Street at Beverly Golf and Tennis, and then, of course, the worst one of all is Henry's Market. When that work is all done, we're doing it in conjunction with some state money. Things at those intersections will be tremendous. And then down the road, another intersection that's a problem here in the city of Beverly is Bridge Street coming on to McPherson Drive. That's next. So it's something that we're committed to. The administration definitely is. One of their goals right from the beginning is to make Beverly more walkable and more safe. Estelle?
Yes, thank you. Briefly. So I did just want to mention too that currently the city is engaged in a master planning process. And I'm really encouraging people to show up at those meetings or write letters to the planning department. And if you're coming to these, again, the mayor will be at some of them. I don't remember if Aaron Clausen, our planning director.
To this event,
series?
yes. Yeah, we'll have Aaron Clausen on October 11th at 2. And he's the Director of Planning and Community Development. And then we also have the mayor on October 25th at 2 as well, which is a Friday. And he'll be the only one on the panel, so.
So I'm really encouraging
Not to be
people
alone.
to, when they participate in the planning process, the master plan process, to really strongly focus on pedestrian safety and bike safety. Because if enough people are saying it during the planning process, it will get written into the master plan in an even bigger way than it's going to be written in. So the other thing is there's some neat things that cities can do. There's a kind of you can almost get certified as a senior, like an elderly friendly community. And what that does is it sort of reviews the ways that you are supporting the mobility of your oldest members of the community. So if we're supporting the oldest members of our community getting from point A to point B on foot, then we're also supporting the youngest members of our community, or the less abled, differently abled members of our community. So I think that's, for me, I know that's something that I've wanted to sort of explore to see how Beverly can go about attaining that level of commitment to making sure our pathways are safe for our oldest and our youngest citizens. So,
Jane, I think you had a question.
I wanted, I guess, to link on with what the comments have been focusing on pedestrian safety and all that. I'm concerned about, as a driver of a car, I am very concerned not only with pedestrians, but the bicyclists. And you mentioned, I think, that there's a sidewalk safety, pedestrian safety program in the schools. Is there something similar with bicycling? Because when I was a kid, we had a police officer come out and give us instruction, and we were told if we were on the bike, we were a vehicle, and if we were in the crosswalk or on the sidewalk, we were supposed to be a pedestrian and get off the bike and walk it. And what I see continually are violations of that, also going on the roads in the wrong direction. And I hear, the Globe is, all these articles about, unfortunately, people being killed in Boston. But so many of them apparently were going the wrong way, or they were weaving in and out of traffic and using sidewalks. I don't want to hit anyone. I'm so nervous about hitting someone. But I was wondering, are we instructing? I guess we start with the children, but I mean, adults are also riding bicycles incorrectly.
So the question is just about instructions on bike safety and bike safety in Beverly in general.
Yes, so like I said, there's a certain time of the year where they do pedestrian safety with the elementary schools, and they do bike safety also. Also, the mayor has a school safety committee, which I sit on, and we meet with the PTO. And one of the things we go over every year is bike safety and pedestrian safety. There's talk about doing the walking buses, to school, and also some rides to school. But you are 100% correct. If you're a pedestrian, you should be on the sidewalk. And if there's no sidewalk, you should be always walking against traffic, so you can see the car coming at you. If you have to go on the wrong side of the street, it's safer to see that car coming at you than having it up behind you. If you are on a bicycle, you are a vehicle. You have to stop at stop signs. You have to yield to pedestrians and crosswalks. You have to make turns in the proper lanes. And you'll see that most people that are dedicated riders will do that. But what we do see is a lot of the kids aren't getting that proper training. One of the things we did give to the school, the Boston Police Department, in conjunction with Safe Streets, I believe, did a video about 3 or 4 years ago on bike safety. It's on YouTube. It's very easy to find. I actually give that to the PTO every year, and they put it out to their members. It's a great video on bicycle safety. One of the things that Beverly doesn't have, there's no ordinance against riding a bike on the sidewalk. So you actually can ride a bike on the sidewalk. In Boston, what they do is they have what's called their business district. I forget if it's a certified business district or their recognized business district. You cannot ride a bike on those sidewalks. So that's something I don't know that we could possibly work on. It certainly can be a problem.
This is streets mostly I'm concerned about.
Yeah, no, we try to, and in my school resource offices, I make sure they go to all the different schools. One of the things we do also on top of that is I dedicate in the morning, the midnight shift before they go off, if it's before hours, or the day cars when they come out, is to visit a school zone. We try to have a cruiser in every school every morning and every afternoon at pickup. And to pick up on some of that stuff. So we try to do that as much as we can. there aren't other calls that we're handling. And one of the other things we do is we actually work with the MBTA, the T-Police, and do some stuff on grade crossings and the safety there. I mean, my biggest fear for the longest time with kids at Briscoe, before the new Gloucester crossing rebuild, it wasn't a good setup. The road design was tough. Now we have brand new traffic lights. They're all controlled by the trains. There's a crosswalk. All the cross signs now work. They're active. The pedestrian signs all work. And so I'm a little easy about that, but now I'm terrified about Kittredge Crossing, because I think the train goes there about 50 miles an hour. And so 1,400 kids are going to the middle school, and the commuter rail's blowing through there both ways at right about 8 o'clock. And people queue on the tracks. It amazes me that you'll stop a car on the tracks and wait. And I panic every day when I go up around the middle school and watch people sit on the railroad tracks in their car. And they do it at Montserrat. They do it at, not as much at Gloucester Cross anymore, but I get terrified when I see Dodge Street. They sit on the tracks, and I'm like, oh my God, don't ever sit on the tracks. And these are adult drivers. These aren't kids on bikes and pedestrians. So we got a lot of work to do.
Well, after that incident, what was it, a year ago? It wasn't in Boston. I mean, that car was trapped and it was hit. I mean, I'd just like to say that it's not just I think all of us, or many of us, we're not good pedestrians. The driving is crazy. I'm sorry, back here, the driving is really bad. And I think it's like once we get on the road, we forget what it's like to be a pedestrian. And then once we're a pedestrian, we forget what it's like to be a driver of a car.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, I don't know why that isn't transferable. Like when I'm walking and I'm crossing the street, I think about what it's like to be the driver of a car. It's like you said, you wait.
We need a better bumper sticker. Stella, can you work on it?
I'm working.
But and one of the things that I have to look at it because I try to keep my pulse in the community, but the Facebook pages drive me crazy because they'll see a pedestrian accident, they'll see a bike accident, and they just start ripping. A lot of those are caused by the pedestrians or the bicyclists. And a lot of them are not. A lot of them are the motor vehicles. Probably the vast majority are the fault of the driver. But we have a lot of bike accidents, a lot of pedestrian accidents that are the fault of the pedestrian or the bicyclist. And so people get on rants and raves, and I just hope that everyone realizes that until the investigations are done, and we put out a press release that there's a lot of factors in a lot of these things.
We'll play a part.
Yeah.
Okay, I think it's opportune, Chief, if I may. I think this is a moment to inject the thought of skateboards too. They have been a problem around the city. Just put the thought, you probably already have it, but do you want to just?
Yeah, sure. So I guess we're adding skateboards into the conversation as well, which is
There's skateboards, there's the scooters, there was a young boy last year that came off the hill on Baker Street, right out into traffic and got hit, and he was on a scooter, no brakes, and he just started coming down the street and wasn't thinking there's going to be traffic on Pickett.
yes.
I had one important question from my standpoint, has to do with traffic, and that is for the chief of police. That I have an adult daughter, 41 years old, that's severely developmentally disabled. She's in a group home in North Andover. It's really just between PV and North Andover. But I'm wondering, but there are many other people, they're not mentally ill. They're developmentally disabled, like Down syndrome, and they used to call them in the old days mentally retarded, but that's a bad word now. Do your people, the people that you hire, do they get some training on trying to understand how to work with somebody that's severely disabled that may be out on the street? That's my most important question.
No, actually, yes.
No, I'm sorry. So the question was about police training and mentally disabled people and how that's working.
So over the last few years, throughout the Commonwealth, there's been a lot of push towards mental health training, all kinds of diversion training, diffusion training. All of our officers received 4 hours in training with Alzheimer's and dementia a few years back, and last year there was a lot of training on dealing with children with autism.
Okay, that's
and-
what I'm really talking
Yeah,
about.
absolutely. There was a training on autism, and we actually had a specialist that came in who was a retired police lieutenant from Norwood whose son is autistic, and he came in and trained every officer on the trends with certain children that suffer from types of autism, that they have a propensity to go to water if they run away and things to that effect that we were all trained in. And one of the things that we all do, I volunteer with Special Olympics every year. We have one of our officers, Jay Lanich, who is training. He trains a group of boys and girls in this region up at Cumming Center at the CrossFit gym, and they do weightlifting. And they participate every year in Special Olympics in Boston at Harvard Stadium. So we're very involved in the Special Olympics program. We've all volunteer. We all do silly things like I jump in the ocean in Revere in March to raise money for Special Olympics. So we're all, and I've done it for years. So we're very, very involved in Special Olympics, and we all do receive a lot of that training.
I just want to make a few comments. One, if you want to go where there's no traffic, go where I live on Prospect Hill, Clifford Avenue, because nobody ever drives up and down there.
So
Just
I'm not sure you want to give that away.
But I also wanted to say, the two most important, for me personally in Beverly, the two most important places were right here, this library, which always was good, but now, I don't know, it must be her, it's super. And then the other place is the senior center. Or maybe she's gone, I don't know, I haven't met her.
She had to go to a meeting.
Oh, she went to another meeting, okay. Senior center, I was just with 60 people working out like I do every morning, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and all sorts of stuff that goes on there. But I also would not want you to underestimate, which I'm sure you don't, our school system. And one of my grandchildren knows your child, and one plays with him, and or her, or whatever. And we have a great school system, so there's a lot of, and then the last thing I have to say, and I shouldn't say it because it's embarrassing to the person I'm going to say it to, but I have to say it. I think the city needs desperately a woman mayor, and a woman mayor, I think, should be Estelle Rain. I know it's embarrassing for me. I think that if I had that dream come true, I'd be so happy.
Well, so this is an entirely campaign-free program. But just doesn't matter. They can't hear you on Bev. So just some wonderful compliments to the library, the city, and school committee, and as well as the senior center. So thank you very much for that.
Just to end on traffic safety, because again, it's one of the things we focus on the most, and when I do our CAC meetings monthly, it always comes up. And it's probably one of the #1 priorities of Mayor Cahill. He and I meet with the traffic sergeant and now the patrol commander every month, and we go over traffic issues in the city, what the officers are doing. It's been a priority. It's going to continue to be a priority. We added a second full-time traffic officer. So there's a dedicated officer just out there doing traffic, an unmarked car, 16 hours a day, and there's a traffic sergeant that participates in all the homecoming events, all the parades, all the road blockage, all the 5Ks that go on. He has to plan all those. He's also out there working. So it's one of the things we do. One of the things we're very proud of is in the year 2013, the police department stopped somewhere about 950 cars for the entire year. We're up on the average of stopping 7,000 cars a year now. So it's certainly an increase. Every officer out there working very hard to make sure there's a proper flow of traffic in the city and a safe flow of traffic.
Are there any other questions out in the audience? Anyone have anything? Okay. So I guess it's 7:30. So I think let's end on one last question. And I'd like to ask, what are you most excited about Beverly? What do you want to celebrate or share? Oh, we're starting with you.
I guess that'll keep me on my toes. So I am most excited about moving forward with really kind of progressing and further claiming our identity as a center for arts and culture, and moving forward historic preservation. I think that's something that, especially along Cabot Street, needs to have my attention. So I think that's an important voice to share as a city councilor, but just also to really recognize that we have multiple theaters that are historic buildings. We have lots of buildings that have been preserved, and as some of you know, we need to work harder at preserving some of our other older buildings and really celebrating the culture that we have. I mean, even in this room, we're surrounded by an art exhibit by our young people. I think these might be summer reading projects.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're a really thriving, creative community, and that is something that you can't force. We naturally have that in our community, and I think that helps to create good leaders and keep us all connected. So that's what I'm really excited about.
And just to add to that, if that's something you are interested in, we're going to be having Abby Battis from Historic Beverly on Friday, October 11th. So she'll be doing one of the Meet Your City programs.
Certainly one of the things I'm most excited about, and it's going to be a top priority for us, is the new police station. Again, we're hopefully going to break ground. The City Council approves our funding in the next couple of weeks. Couple of public hearings, and the public hearing on next Monday will be set, and then the public hearing, I believe, will be October 21st. So we'll all be there waiting for that. Again, it's going to be a tremendous improvement to the city. We're going to have a community room that'll sit 40 people, so meetings like this can be done there. If you have your civic groups want to have meetings there, it's obviously going to be a very safe place to hold meetings, and we want people to come. One of the other things I'm very excited about, and the mayor and I are in conversations about increasing numbers to the police force. Back in the 80s, there were 86 police officers in Beverly. When I started here in 2013, there was 65, and right now we're up to about 68, and we're talking about increasing again. That's because of budget problems that happened well back in the 80s, and we're making a tremendous push to try to get our numbers back up so that we can match the population growth in the city. I'm kind of curious what the census numbers are going to show, but I think our census is going to show an increase, a steady increase in population with all the building going on. I think we'll need to add to the force.
Okay, I was contemplating that. I'm going to go outside and break the rules here because I'm going to say two things.
That's fine.
So we were really fortunate to have two foundations support us in buying a new truck. That may not sound exciting to all of you, but for us it is huge because we can now move food with one driver. That we go into the Greater Boston Food Bank. They can drive right into the dock at Greater Boston Food Bank. The pallets go right on. They drive back, and the pallets drop and come right in. We were moving that with two people. One would have to be up on the dock, and the other one down at the van, and all of those pounds and pounds and pounds of food. We move about 450,000 pounds of food a year now. And that was much of it was being moved from the top of the dock down and into the van. And then when they got back, it would have to be unloaded. So this is a game changer for us, the way that we do business, and for the backs of the folks that have been doing that job for so long. So that's one. I think for me, every year, my favorite night always is something that we call the Celebration of Excellence. And it is a night where we have all of the folks who have been involved in our education programs come together, and their families. And we prepare people to go in and take their high set exams. The high set is, some people know it as GED. It's your high school equivalency exam. So we do that, and we teach English classes. And it is such an amazing night because we celebrate the resilience, the unbelievable human spirit, the stories that we know about the folks that are with us and trying to better their lives. They're just remarkable, and the effort that goes in by both the volunteers and the students, and to see the success of people who have never been celebrated before for academic success. It changes your life truly. And I'm always so very excited for that night to come around, and we have another great group of students that are working really hard to accomplish that goal again. And so we'll get through the turkeys and the holiday gifts. And then in the spring, we really look forward to celebrating all of them. So that's what I'm excited for.
And that's a great event, Sue. I was lucky enough to see how you decorated the gym at the First Baptist Church last year. It's amazing.
Right back to our roots.
Yeah, that's good. What I'm most excited about is Beverly has become a destination again. For so many years, we've heard that how wonderful things were to do business in Peabody or to enjoy other things in Salem. But Beverly really has everything. Business-wise, over the past 4 years, we've welcomed 4 new companies into Beverly. I'm lucky enough to sit on a committee, the Economic and Community Development Commission, with 5 or 6 volunteers from the community. And we've approved minor tax breaks to have Krona come over from Peabody, world-renowned. High-res biosolutions, they rented from Cummings Center in Woburn. They're here in Beverly at Cherry Hill. Freudenberg Medical is in the process of moving from Gloucester to the airport road. And finally, Harmonic Drive. It's amazing the things that they do in robotics. They work on things that for the space mission in NASA. They're up at Dunham Road. Socially, we have great restaurants now on Cabot Street and Rantoul Street. We have wonderful beaches on Dane Street and Independence Park. We try to keep them as clean as possible. We have the North Shore Music Theater. Thank God that Bill Haney took a chance a dozen years ago to step in after the fire, and it's amazing. The shows are Broadway quality right down the street from our homes. We have the Lockham Theater on Wallace Street, and last but certainly not least, we have the Cabot. What would we have done had that turned into something something not as important as it is right now? We have world-class entertainers right here on Cabot Street. And it's great. The Cabot has done so much for the businesses downtown. And I have friends that don't live here on the North Shore. They ask what's going on in Beverly, or when are you going to get tickets and call us to go see X? You went to see Charlie Daniels. Why didn't you tell us? So we get a little spoiled being here, but I think we're on the right track here in Beverly.
Great. Did you have another question, or? Sorry, I thought you raised your hand at one point. No. Yeah. Okay. So then I guess I just want to end this by saying thank you guys so much for coming, and also thank you to all of you for coming and joining us tonight. We will have our next one on Friday, October 11th at 2 o'clock. And we're going to have Catherine Barrett from the Director of Grants, Abby Vadas from Historic Beverly, Erin Clausen, who's the Director of Planning and Community Development, and Chris Silverstein, who's the School Committee President. And then we also have October 16th and October 25th, so there's several more programs in this series. There's a schedule in the back, and also if you're interested in what else is going on at the library, there's a newsletter. So thank you guys so much for joining us, and thank you to all of you.